General James Mattis as his pick for Secretary of Defense. Ash Carter weighed in on Trump's selection to replace him. He says that the General Mattis rather, he holds him in the highest regard. Mattis also has been endorsed by former Secretary of Defense Robert Gates. He met with Trump yesterday at Trump Tower.
I told him I thought his selection of General Mattis to be Secretary of Defense was terrific. Very supportive.
But as CNN's Jim Sciutto shows us, there are a few key differences in opinion between Trump and his defense secretary's pick. Let's listen.
Christy and Martin, we're hearing a lot of positive reaction to the nomination of Mattis, this from both Democrats and Republicans, but also people in uniform, some of whom were skeptical of Trump.
We are going to appoint Mad Dog Mattis as our Secretary of Defense.
Mad Dog, the nickname General James Mattis earned leading U.S. Marines in the bloodiest battle of the Iraq War, is Donald Trump's pick for Defense Secretary.
And he's our best. They say he's the closest thing to General George Patton that we have, and it's about time.
Mattis is a seasoned combat commander with 44 years of service in the Marine Corps and key commands in both Afghanistan and Iraq, where he led troops in the 2003 invasion and later in the battle for Fallujah.
The U.S. military is quite capable of giving our enemies their longest day and their worst day if ordered to do so.
Since retiring as CENTCOM commander after disputes with the White House, Mattis has been critical of the Obama administration.
The next president is going to inherit a mess.
Like Trump, Mattis is hawkish on Iran.
The Iranian regime, in my mind, is the single most enduring threat to stability and peace in the Middle East.
Still, Trump and Mattis disagree on several key foreign policy challenges. Trump has praised Russia.
Wouldn't it be nice if we actually did get along with Russia?
Mattis sees Russia and Putin as a threat.
Putin goes to bed at night knowing he can break all the rules and the West will try to follow the rules. That is a very dangerous dichotomy.
Trump is in favor of bringing back the illegal practice of waterboarding terrorists.
I think waterboarding's fine.
Mattis opposes waterboarding. Trump telling the New York Times that during a meeting, Mattis told him it is ineffective.
I said, what do you think of waterboarding? He said, I've never found it to be useful. He said, I've always found, give me a pack of cigarettes and a couple of beers, and I do better with that than I do with torture.
Mattis is highly respected up and down the military ranks. A Marines Marine, and also a voracious reader and deep military thinker.
Very dedicated, very focused, and the smartest man in the room.
He carried around with him throughout his career a library of around 10,000 books, and he's read most of them.
But his career has not been without controversy. In 2005, he came under fire for remarks in a panel discussion which seemed to make light of killing in combat. Mattis's nomination would, however, face an immediate and significant legislative hurdle. Federal law requires the Pentagon be led by either a civilian or a military veteran who has been out of uniform for at least 7 years. Mattis has only been retired for 3 years, so Congress would have to vote to give him a waiver. Christy and Martin?
All right, thank you so much, Jim. I want to talk about the voice that Mattis would bring to the Trump administration with our CNN military analyst, Lieutenant General Mark Hertling. He is the former Army Commanding General for Europe and the 7th Army. General Hertling, so good to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Chris.
We heard there, good morning to you, the praise that this pick has brought forth. But how do you see, somebody who is in the military, how do you see Mattis influencing Trump's administration?
Very positively, Chrissy. He is a very mature and informed strategic thinker. He's not only a great tactical and operational battlefield commander, but this is an individual who is professional across the board. He is, he has the nickname of Mad Dog that everybody's touting, but that's something that the press gave him. I think he would be much more comfortable with something that he was called as a 4-star, the Warrior Monk. He is a student of military history and strategy. He is commanded in all parts of the globe, and he knows the world. So I believe, as a former military guy, I would tell you that this is the right kind of person to have inside the National Security Council as a key voice to balance some of the thoughts that Mr. Trump has already laid out.
I was just going to ask you, we heard there from Jim that Russia, that waterboarding, two issues in particular that there is some disagreement on between President-elect Trump and General Mattis. How does Mattis deal with a situation like that, where there is a difference in the thought process and what should happen going forward?
Well, typically the members of the National Security Council and the Primaries Committee, the main group of people that surround the president when he's analyzing different courses of actions, Mattis and whoever will be the Secretary of State will probably be the two key voices, the alpha dogs in the room. So the influence that he's going to be able to give in these kind of deliberations, but also in terms of telling Mr. Trump, here is what the Department of Defense and the military forces can do, here's what they shouldn't do, and here are the courses of actions, if you're asking me for options, that we're looking at. So those are very important things. So he will give Mr. Trump a vision of the feasible and viable plans that Mr. Trump is asking him to execute, all in accordance with military and civilian ethos and the law.
I want to read what one Marine said of Mattis. It was originally in the Strategy Bridge and then picked up by the Federalist, but he wrote, "To Marines, he is the finest of our tribal elders. The rest of the world very soon will know how truly gifted he is. Our friends and allies will be happy. He is our new Secretary of War. Our enemies will soon wish he weren't." How do you talk to people who may be concerned? What do you say to people who may be concerned that being in that position just with only 3 years in between, as we know, Jim talked about how Congress has to pass this to make it happen. To people who might have some concern about the safety of our troops and the missions that they will be on and how aggressive the military may be in those missions.
Yeah, well, the first thing I would tell them is the civilian control of the military is a process that General Mattis and all the rest of us believe in. That's the subordination of competent military to the ends of overall policy. So when you're talking about national security policy, General Mattis, now Mr. Mattis, will give the input from just one of the 4 elements of national policy, and that's the military. But I'd also say I'm personally happy about the fact that Mr. Trump has selected a retired general, because he will go into the Pentagon and understand the culture and bring out the fact that of all the people who are warfighters, the people who have actually seen combat, and General Mattis has to a large degree, they are the ones who are least wanting to go to combat. So they offer the sane approach, saying, hey, look, we don't want to put America's sons and daughters into harm's way if we don't have to. So that's why I think General Mattis will be a very seasoned and mature voice in a room of perhaps a lot of other individuals who are going after courses of actions that are not either feasible or viable.
Mm-hmm. All right. Lieutenant General Mark Herdling, always so good to have your voice here with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy.
Mm-hmm.
As firefighters continue to battle those wildfires in Tennessee, some residents have had their opportunity to get their first look at their homes and what's left.